Ever pondered the intricate workings of the human brain? How neurons, the basic building blocks of the nervous system, communicate to make every thought, every movement, and every sensation possible? Indeed, it's a fascinating world where axons, dendrites, spines, and action potentials play vital roles. Dive into the world of neurons and their communication process, where it all starts with the axon. Picture the axon as a long, thin structure, a highway, if you will, that carries essential messages from one part of the neuron to another. These messages, or action potentials, travel down the axon, causing the release of neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers of the nervous system. Now imagine a city at the end of that highway. This city represents the dendrite, the receiving end of the neuron. Dendrites, like a bustling city, receive synaptic inputs from axons. These inputs are like travelers, each carrying their own bit of information. The total sum of these dendritic inputs determines whether the neuron will fire an action potential, much like a city council deciding on a new law based on the input of its citizens. Next, consider the small protrusions found on dendrites, known as spines. Think of these spines as the city's contact points or post offices, receiving messages for the city. For many synapses, these spines are the postsynaptic contact site, receiving and processing the messages sent by the axons. Finally, let's not forget the action potential. This brief electrical event, typically generated in the axon, signals the neuron as active. It's like a green light on a traffic signal, indicating that it's time to move. The action potential travels the length of the axon and causes the release of neurotransmitter into the synapse, allowing the neuron to communicate with other neurons. In essence, neurons are the fundamental units of the brain and nervous system, the cells responsible for receiving sensory input from the external world, sending motor commands to our muscles, and transforming and relaying the electrical signals at every step in between. They communicate through a complex but beautifully orchestrated process, involving axons, dendrites, spines, and action potentials. The axon, the long highway of the neuron, carries action potentials that trigger the release of neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are received by the dendrites, the bustling city at the end of the highway. The dendrites, with their spines acting as post offices, process these messages and determine whether to fire an action potential. The action potential, the green light of the neuron, then travels back down the axon, continuing the cycle of communication. So, the next time you marvel at the complexity of a thought, a movement, or a sensation, remember the incredible world of neurons and their communication process. It's a world where axons, dendrites, spines, and action potentials work in perfect harmony to make our daily lives possible.